Another 6-touchdown performance in the NAIA. It's happened throughout the 2023 season. And as a matter of fact, we have more than one. We have at least two of those we're going to talk about here. Our top 5 performances in the NAIA in the football season here in 2023 on Midwest Sports Net. I'm Joey McWilliams. Thanks for watching tonight. It's a little bit later start time for our live stream tonight, as it is 10 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock in the Pacific time zone. We'll talk about that and a few more things as we go through the evening. So we're also going to have one of these a little bit later on in the month of October. Want to give a shout out to Jake Redcorn, one of our friends of the channel here. So let me see if we get that up there. Thanks a lot to Jake for watching and being a part of the broadcast. As always, Jake watching from East Wichita. Hey, if you're watching tonight during the live stream especially, please let us know from where you are watching. And we're going to get now into, we'll get to the top 5 performances in just a moment. Let's go beyond the 5 first. And this is the opportunity in our live stream in which we talk about some of the other games, some of the other things, because there's so many great performances that we know we can't get them all in top 5. So we go beyond the 5. We're not going to hit every single game in the NAIA that was played this weekend. There were 44 of those that had at least one NAIA team. We're not going to get to all of them, but hopefully we get to your school and to one of the performances that meant something to you. So we'll start at Georgetown. Reinhardt continues to dominate Georgetown. 28-24. Reinhardt scored on a late touchdown. Taylor Jackson with a 6-yard pass to Jake Wallace. The touchdown with 1 minute 36 seconds remaining in the contest. Taylor Jackson, 12 for 15 passing on the day. 80% completion rate, 150 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown. That was the one at the very end. Had 8 carries for 51 yards as well and a rushing touchdown. That was Jackson for Reinhardt. They continue to dominate the Georgetown Tigers. Warner, all over Kentucky Christian. That's been the way it's been all season long for the Knights. Warner scored all throughout the game. One thing in particular, Evan Eschbach, a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. How about Indiana Wesleyan? The Wildcats remain undefeated. Big win over Roosevelt. I said they'd win by at least 10. How about 21? 35-14 the final there. Xander Stokes and company with another victory. Stokes 26 for 38 passing, 343 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, had 2 picks as well, 6 carries for a collective negative 5 yards, but did have a touchdown run in all of that. Levi Tidwell, 10 receptions, 190 yards through the air, 1 receiving touchdown for Tidwell. OUAZ, 52, SAGU, 10. Stephen Bradford for the Spirit, 18 carries, 118 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. And hey, he had 1 catch for 16 yards. That for a touchdown as well. So a big day for the Spirit, and they pick up another big win in the Sooner Athletic Conference. This one had all the earmarks of a great matchup. Proved to be a pretty good game. However, there was one team more dominant, and it was the team realistically that needed the win more than the other one. St. Thomas, the Bobcats, it was a must-win situation, I believe, for the 2023 season. And the St. Thomas Bobcats get the victory over the Texas Wesleyan Rams, offering up the Rams the first loss of the season. 38-20 the final score. The 2 running backs were to highlight or headline this game on Saturday. It was one more so than the other. Rontavious Farmer, 21 carries, 156 rushing yards, had 3 rushing touchdowns. Farmer leading the NAIA now in rushing, 139.3, well, let's go ahead and say, and a third rushing yards per game. That leads the NAIA. The St. Thomas defense held Ernest Caesar in this one to just 62 rushing yards. He had 44 receiving yards as well, but he was kept out of the end zone, and that's a big deal in this 38-20 victory. One other person, though, that needs to be mentioned here, and if you are a Texas Wesleyan Rams fan, you've seen this name show up. You need to be watching out for him. He's made some noise this season. A.J. Bobb with yet another 2-touchdown performance. The receiver is getting catches left and right from Carson Rogers. On Saturday, 8 catches, 152 yards, and 2 more touchdowns. That's the 3rd game this season that Bobb has had 2 receiving touchdowns. 3rd game in a row, as a matter of fact. Peru State over Missouri Baptist. One of these 2 teams had to win. We said it would probably be Peru State holding Mobap out of the win column in the Hart Conference once again, and that was in fact the case. The Bobcats, 43-32 victors over the Spartans. Colin Shields, 18 for 30 passing for 202 passing yards, had 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and he also had 6 carries for 38 yards on the day. For Missouri Baptist, Jordan Simpson, 19 for 40 passing on the day, 22 yards passing, 3 touchdowns through the air, had 1 pick. Blake Knight, I want to read that right. Blake Kite, 16 tackles for Missouri Baptist. He was active, but just not active enough, and the Bobcats get the 11-point victory. St. Xavier, all over Madonna. Stuart Ross, 9 for 12 passing for the day, 232 yards passing, had 3 passing touchdowns. He had 25.8 yards per completion on the day, 75% passing completion on the day. Stuart Ross, a big day. And how about Justin Pringle? Had 2 catches, both for touchdowns, 139 receiving yards in those 2 receptions, 1 touchdown catch for 79 yards, 1 touchdown catch for 60 yards. Pringle with a big day. Stuart Ross with a big day. St. Xavier, the Cougars, all over the Crusaders, 31-7. Mid-America Nazarene, another victory for the Pioneers, 27-24 over Clark. Trevor Hiley was 2 for 2 field goals on the day, that including a game winner with 2 seconds left, 37 yards, 27 yards, the game winner with 2 seconds left. Kenyon Williams for Clark, 19 for 27 passing, 274 yards through the air, 1 touchdown. His long touchdown throw for the day was 86 yards. You have to think, okay, this is going to be the long one for the day. Not the case. Adrian Parsons, who came into the contest throwing for 294 yards a game through the air, threw for 295 yards in the game on Saturday. 20 of 32 passing, just the 1 passing touchdown, no picks, but his went for 90 yards. That was a school record, and that one went to Arlandis Mitchell, who had 4 receptions on the day, 113 yards through the air, 90 of them coming with that touchdown pass, and it proved to be a big one. 27-24, the Pioneers with a big Hart Conference victory. Grandview and Missouri Valley dominated by Grandview. It was in rain delay, and Grandview scored many different ways. We'll get more stats on that a little bit later on, but it was in rain delay, but Grandview came away with a huge victory, and the Vikings, the Grandview Vikings, that is, remain undefeated on the season. Dickinson State with a parting love gift to Waldorf, as the Warriors have announced they will be moving to the GPAC in 2024. Well, Dickinson State and the North Star saying, well, take this loss at least on the way out this season. 41-14, Braden Zuroff, 30 carries, 185 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns. Waldorf, Jatovier Hill with another day, not as strong though as the one last week, still had 2 rushing touchdowns, had 14 carries for 47 yards. Dakota Wesleyan, 16-12 over Concordia, and the Tigers did just enough to win, gave up a safety at the end. 5 Dakota Wesleyan players with 10 or more tackles on the day. Baker, 45, Graceland, 42, and for the second week in a row, I picked Graceland to win and buck the trend against teams that have had the Yellow Jackets number. This one picked wrong once again for Graceland. Cade Ross, 20 of 27 passing, not a bad day. 310 yards passing, not a bad day. 4 touchdowns, but was picked off twice. Truman Julesgaard, 16 for 31 through the air, 302 yards passing. He had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. It was the Baker defense that stepped up when it needed to. Rashad Graves had 1 receiving touchdown, 2 catches for the day of 57 yards total, 17 carries for 50 yards rushing, and had a rushing touchdown as well. Thad Metcalf, 9 tackles. He led his team. He also had a 40-yard pick 6 that gave his team the lead at the half. It would go back and forth, but Metcalf's tackles, his pick 6, and what Julesgaard did through the air and more. Big for the Wildcats. They come away with a huge 45-42 victory over Graceland. I know it's a crossover game in the heart, but it still gives the Wildcats some momentum. Friends, the Falcons get back in the win column. And, I had that from Jake Redcorn a little bit earlier, who stepped away from the broadcast. Homecoming was great, had the best tailgate in the KCAC, fed 202 of the hungry Falcon faithful. Redcorn's Falcons come away with a victory in Wichita, 36-13 over Tabor. Cavante Baker, 4 of 6 passing for 96 yards, had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He's one of 2 players today, by the way, to complete all of his passes. We'll get to the other one in just a moment. So he was 4 for 6. However, 2 interceptions means he completed those other 2 passes. They were just folks in the other jersey. 24 carries, 104 rushing yards on the day, 3 rushing touchdowns for Baker. Laken Cloudis, 15 carries, 126 yards on the ground as well. Friends, 353 rushing yards on the day. That brings the total to 2,157 rushing yards through 5 games, an average of 431.4 yards on the ground per game. Now, this is in comparison to last year. The Falcons led the NAIA with 3,026 rushing yards overall for the season. That was through 11 games, have less than 900 yards rushing short of that already through just 5 games this season. It's going to absolutely obliterate that mark before the end of the year. Keep watching that total. Morningside, 48. Midland, 17. The Warriors go down to the Mustangs. Big win for the Mustangs for a number of reasons. First, it's the 71st consecutive regular season win for the Morningside Mustangs. By the way, for Coach Steve Ryan, his 223rd win of his career with Morningside, and that is good enough for 6th in the NAIA all-time. How about that? Lennox Brown, back at the helm for the Mustangs, had 18 carries for 129 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 of 3 yards, 1 of 74 yards. He was also 12 of 20 passing for 129 yards, had 2 passing touchdowns, 1 to Zach Norton and 1 to Joshua Simmons. He also had a pick on the day. 3 defensive touchdowns for the Morningside Mustangs. Blake Brown with an 18-yard fumble recovery for a score. Lonell Boyd Jr. with a 59-yard pick 6. And Isaac Pringle with a 53-yard pick 6 on the day. Morningside 48, Midland 17. How about Rocky Mountain? 13-7 victors over Eastern Oregon. The defense stepping up for Rocky Mountain once again. The Battling Bears went up 13-0 in the first half, and they held the lead. Held Eastern Oregon to just 33 yards rushing on the day. Zaire Wilcox, 24 carries. He had 132 rushing yards by himself. Oklahoma Panhandle State, 31. Arkansas Baptist, 19. The Panhandle State defense was solid. How about 5 interceptions for the day for the Aggies? Led by Cameron Dixon, who had 10 tackles. He's had double-digit tackles in each of the last 3 games for Panhandle State. 3 tackles for loss of those 10 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 pass breakup, and a blocked kick on top of that. Big day for Cameron Dickerson. Aggies get the win. Kansas Wesleyan 27, Bethel 14 in the KCAC. This crossover matchup was big, and the Coyotes now have a winning record for the first time this season. They moved to 3-2 on the year. Richard Lara, 18 of 28 passing for 180 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, had a pick on the day. And DJ Sears did what Cavante Baker did. His numbers may have been a little bit more impressive. 9 of 10 passing for the day with 1 passing touchdown for 61 yards, but he actually completed the other pass. It was just to someone in a purple jersey, 1 interception, so actually completed all 10 of his passes. Briar Cliff picks up the win, gets the upset over Hastings in Sioux City. Briar Cliff scores 13 points in the 4th quarter to get the win. Langston, 15th consecutive victory over Texas College. They do it big time. Lions 47-6 over the Steers. Torrance Bardell, 16 of 26 passing, 238 yards through the air, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 pick. He also had 7 carries for 43 yards and a rushing touchdown too. Ave Maria, 50-7 over Fort Lauderdale. The Gyrenes, led by Brian Steinke, again, 2 rushing touchdowns this week. Last week, he had 35 carries for 264 yards. Just 10 carries for 64 yards this time. The Gyrenes didn't need his production quite as much this week. Also had 2 catches for 8 yards and another touchdown. Steinke has just been lighting it up for Ave Maria. We move back from the East Coast to the West. Let's go out west now, where Montana Tech pulled off a 44-35 victory over College of Idaho. The 2 teams combined for 1,039 yards of total offense, 548 yards of total offense for Montana Tech. College of Idaho, 491. For the Ore Diggers, Blake Thielen, 17 of 27 passing for 361 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no pick. College of Idaho, Andy Peters, 28 of 42, 354 yards through the air, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception on the day. And then the 2 teams were led in other areas. Wyatt Alexander had 3 receptions for 131 yards receiving on the day for Montana Tech. Big day for Alexander. And for College of Idaho, Matthew Iwamazu, 13 tackles on the day to lead the Coyotes. Staying in the Frontier Conference, the first ever road game for Arizona Christian went to the home team, Carroll, with a 35-20 victory. This game was destined to have a score of 21-20 at some point in time, as it actually did have that score. The end of the third quarter, it was 21-20. Carroll was on top. The Saints go ahead and tack on 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That included a pick 6, by the way. And that's the final score. 35-20 the score. Duncan Kraft, 12 carries for 96 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jack Perka, 12 of 22 passing, 149 yards, got the 1 passing touchdown, no interceptions. He did what was necessary on the day for the Saints. By the way, Arizona Christian, Tyler Duncan, 31 of 51 passing for 247 yards. That's right. Duncan had 51 attempts on the day. 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception, had 10 carries for 31 yards as well. Definitely a dual threat quarterback. Evangel over Ottawa. And there were rain delays throughout the day in different places. This game avoided the rain delay, and we'll tell you a little bit about this. This is where Midwest Sports Saturday was going to have its broadcast on Saturday up in Springfield. We were in Springfield as it was. We were going to be able to make it to the Evangel game, and it didn't happen because Evangel moved its kickoff time up from 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock, got the game in over Ottawa, and the Valor come away with a 27-21 victory over the Braves. Had to come from behind in this game to do it. R.J. Wakely, 12 of 24 passing, 171 yards passing on the day, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. Eric Williams, 26 carries for 151 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and 1 receiving touchdown as well. Had 1 catch, that for 16 yards for Williams. That wound up being 1 for the score. We were in Springfield, and daughter number 3 is attending college at Missouri State, so we actually were there on site. We were band boosters. If you saw the game wrap on the channel a little bit earlier, I was wearing a band booster t-shirt because that's where I was. Actually got a lot of sun, if you can't tell. I was expecting a cloudy day, didn't take the sunscreen. I need to take the sunscreen. That's all I'm saying. Need to take the sunscreen. This'll tan up a little bit more. It's not going to stay red for long. However, did get to see Missouri State with a big win over Utah Tech, 59-14. It shouldn't have been that close. It shouldn't even have been that close. Really wanted to be, though, in Nixa, Missouri to watch the Evangel and Ottawa game. Proved to be a Valor victory. We're going to come back. We'll be on campus at Evangel, I hope sometime this year. We're actually planning to be on campus in Drury as well. So should be a lot of fun. We're going to have fun in Springfield in 23-24. Evangel, though, with the victory, Evangel remains undefeated. And I'm telling you, this Kessinger division in the KCAC, it's a strong division. Montana Western, 24. Southern Oregon, 23. Michael Palandri, 25 of 38 passing, 269 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. UMW comes back trailing 23-12 in the fourth quarter, Palandri, with those 2 passing touchdowns, puts 12 more points on the board. Neither 2-point conversion is successful. The 12 points, enough, though, for the Bulldogs to get the win 24-23. And both of those passing touchdowns went to Eli Norris. He had 13 receptions on the day, 169 yards receiving, those 2 fourth-quarter receiving touchdowns, the game-winning touchdown with 42 seconds remaining. Bulldogs over the Raiders 24-23. Valley City State over Mayville State in 2 overtimes, 24-21. Faulkner over Southeastern in 1 overtime, 16-13. How about Campbellsville? Jagger Gillis continues to sling the ball down the field, 27 of 45 passing, 340 yards through the day. Campbellsville with a 37-27 victory over Union in this one. Gillis, 2 touchdowns, had 2 picks, though, as well. He's one of 4 quarterbacks in the NAIA right now, averaging more than 300 passing yards per game. Campbellsville continuing to have a strong 2023. McPherson, 42, doubling up Avila with just 21. Tristan Zabo, 5 passing touchdowns. And by the way, we're getting to a point in the day where we're getting closer to that top 5 performances. 5 passing touchdowns, that has to be up there near the top 5, right? Had 1 interception, though. He threw touchdown passes to 5 different receivers, 17 passing touchdowns overall in the season. That's tied for second in the NAI. Bryson Kirby with 14 carries, 102 yards rushing on the day. He had a rushing touchdown, the only rushing touchdown for the Bulldogs. McPherson, 42-21. Bethel, 48. Thomas, 14. And Joaquin Collazo, the third, another 5-touchdown day for him. 17-21 passing, 233 yards. Had an interception as well. And he's had a strong season. Found J.D. Dixon 3 times for touchdowns. Dixon, 8 receptions, 146 yards receiving. How about Demetrius Gilbert, by the way, for Bethel? 59-yard punt return for a touchdown. It's his 3rd non-offensive touchdown of the season. The punt return for the touchdown to go within 2 interceptions for touchdown day back in the opening game of the season for Bethel. And finally, this game took place just a little while ago. William Penn, 27, Central Methodist 17. Sterling Ramsey II, 17 for 27 passing for 241 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interception for Ramsey for William Penn. We are going to take a look now at our top 5 performances. And the reason we started tonight just a little bit late is because we were still on the road coming back from Springfield. So we had to make sure that we got back, signal strong, make sure the computer's up and getting everything done. So the top 5 performances. And by the way, I drove by a Stuckey's on the way home. Now, I don't know about you or where you are exactly in the country, but there were Stuckey's throughout I'm a 71 model, so I don't go back to the 60s. But I do remember in the 70s when we travel, vacations, different things like that, there were Stuckey's just all across the way. So many of them, and there was a decline in the 70s, but I'm seeing them start to come back, and saw a Stuckey's on the way home. So that was really pretty cool. So maybe you can tell me about your Stuckey's experience. I know Buc-ee's is the travel place to stop, but I'm telling you, I think Stuckey's is on the way back. So we'll talk about that. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and put the graphic up there. And there it is, top 5 performances for this week here on Midwest Sports Net. Let's take a look there. Lindsey Wilson, 45-28, the win over Bluefield. These 2 teams combined for 1,046 yards of total offense. And you want to talk about an evenly matched game. Lindsey Wilson, 524 yards of offense. Bluefield, 522 yards of offense on the day. And of Bluefield's offense, 467 of that 522 was through the air, just 55 yards rushing. For Bluefield, Nathan Hurstich, 30 of 57 passing, 467 yards. He had a big day himself, 4 passing touchdowns, had the 1 interception. Nate Monroe, 8 receptions for 156 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Jules Gray, absolutely love that name. Jules Gray, keep making big plays because we want to call that name out a few more times. 11 receptions, 150 yards, and he had 1 receiving touchdown. But we're talking about Lindsey Wilson here, and the Blue Raiders get the win. Ethan Cash settling in that starting position, 15 passes completed of 27 on the day, 249 yards through the air, 2 passing touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions, though, as well. But Jabias Dawson carried the load for the day, and he did it in a big-time way. 27 rushes for 252 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Dawson averaged 9.3 yards per carry. I mean, it's almost a first down every single time Dawson got the ball. 252 yards rushing on the day, 3 rushing touchdowns for Jabias Dawson. Well, Blue Raiders, we'll get to the Red Raiders in a moment, but in the meantime, let's talk about the Spires and St. Mary. We picked Bethany here on the channel, and the Spires thought better than that. St. Mary scored 99 points in its last 2 games combined. And you know what? It wasn't all about the offense. They forced 5 turnovers as well on Saturday. But let's talk about that offense for a moment. Erick Covington, 13 for 32 passing, 205 yards, but he had 5 touchdowns thrown. He did have the interception as well, but he also had 5 carries for 4 yards and got a rushing touchdown. So a 6-touchdown day for Erick Covington for St. Mary. Threw 2 of those touchdowns to Michael Gazana. He had 5 catches for 106 yards receiving on the day. Covington, the big day for St. Mary, and St. Mary picks up the win over Bethany in a big-time fashion. Let's move on to the Red Raiders now. You know they're the number 1 team in the country. Got another victory and pitched a shutout in this one. 42-0 over Mount Marty. Jalen Gramstead with the big day. 25 for 34 passing. 397 yards passing. But he's a running quarterback. He can do both. Yeah, actually he can. And he had 9 carries for 22 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown too. Gramstad, another 5-touchdown day, and he continues to just rack up those statistics. Threw 8 to, or actually, well, he may have thrown more, but Michael Story caught 8 of them. We're just going to assume that every time Story was targeted, he made the catch, though. Michael Story, 8 catches, 133 yards receiving, had a touchdown catch. Will Bunn, 5 receptions, 111 yards receiving, had a touchdown catch. Peyton Carroll, 7 receptions, 100 yards receiving, had a touchdown catch. That's right, 3 if you're looking at it in sign language. 3 100 yards had 3 receivers with 100 yards receiving on the day. Big day for Gramstad, and he is one of our top 5 performers. We couldn't just give this to one person when we move on down to Louisiana Christian, so we're going to talk about 3 players here in our top 5 performances, and this is a Wildcats performance. It's a team performance. We'll talk about Sal Palermo III in the victory over Wayland Baptist. Louisiana Christian 60-14 over the Pioneers. 13 of 19 passing for Palermo. 369 passing yards. He had 3 passing touchdowns, no picks. That's solid. He had 4 carries for 39 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns too. Palermo accounts for 5 touchdowns on the day. Let's go back to the passing yardage for just a moment. 13 for 19. He completed 13 passes for 369 yards. He averaged 28.4 yards per completion. Big day for Palermo through the air. Also had 2 rushing touchdowns. Tavion Cunningham, 5 carries, 18 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns as well, and caught one of those touchdown passes from Palermo. 1 catch, it was for 25 yards. It resulted in a touchdown. So basically, for Tavion Cunningham, he touched the ball 6 times, had 5 carries, 1 reception. He touched the ball 6 times. 4 of those 6 times, he scored a touchdown. Big day for him. And Sammy Feaster, he had 3 receptions on the day for 195 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Same percentage, 67% there for Feaster. Touched the ball 3 times on the day. 2 of those 3 times, he scored a touchdown. Big day. You see why we couldn't just give that to one person there for the Wildcats. Coach Maddox's team We have said, and you can go back and look at this. We need to bring the video back up to tell you. We said watch for the Wildcats. Continue to watch for the Wildcats. This is a team that is likely going to be being talked about in the month of November. So keep that in mind. One more here today on the list, and we go to Benedictine. Third time this season that Benedictine has scored at least 60 points in a game, and the Ravens do it 60-7 over Culver Stockton. Jackson Dooley, 17 for 32 passing for 223 yards, had 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions on the day, didn't give up anything there. 1 carry, it was from 2 yards out. That's all he needed, a score there. A 6-touchdown day for Jackson Dooley. It's his second game this season in which he's thrown 5 passing touchdowns, did it against Clark as well. He has 17 passing touchdowns on the season overall. We talked about that, in a tie for second place in the NAIA in passing touchdowns this year. And in those 5 passing touchdowns, by the way, he didn't stay in the game the whole time. There were 6 touchdowns thrown on the day. 6 different receivers had a touchdown catch on the day. Benedictine started the year at 1-2. Since that time, they've outscored their opponents, the Ravens have, 122-35. And again, in 3 wins this year, Benedictine has put 60 at least on the board. So that's a look at your top 5 performances. Performances from Lindsey Wilson's Jabias Dawson, St. Mary's Erick Covington, and Northwestern's Jalen Gramstad. Louisiana Christian's Sal Palermo, Tavion Cunningham, Sammy Feaster, and Benedictine's Jackson Dooley here on Midwest Sports Net. We have more things to talk about over the course of the week, so please continue to come back to the channel. We look to have another interview or 2 as well. It's going to be a strong week, so keep it right here. And also on Thursday night, we will preview week 5 in the NAIA as well. So keep it right here on Midwest Sportsnet. Thanks for watching tonight. We appreciate you being here. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. It really does help a lot. God bless you all. Thanks for watching this show tonight, our top 5 performances here on Midwest Sportsnet. Have a great night.